Imagine the joy of holding your newborn baby for the first time. The tiny fingers, the soft cries, the overwhelming love. Now imagine that moment being stolen from you. Keisha had dreamed of this day for 9 long months. She and her husband David were ready to welcome their baby girl into the world. But in a cruel twist of fate, their happiness turned into a nightmare. Moments after giving birth, Keisha was exhausted but eager to hold her child. The doctor smiled, reassured her, and then took the baby away. Something felt off, but Keisha was too weak to protest. "Where's my baby?" she whispered. "She's fine," the doctor said. "We just need to run some tests." Hours passed, then a day, and still no baby. David, a respected businessman and, unbeknownst to most, the owner of the very hospital where his wife had given birth, sensed something was terribly wrong. At first, the staff gave him vague excuses, dodging his questions, but David was no fool. He knew when people were hiding something. As he pressed for answers, a chilling truth began to unfold. His child, his own flesh and blood, had been taken, and the very person sworn to protect lives had betrayed them. The doctor had her own dark reasons, but what she didn't know, she had just crossed the wrong man. David was about to uncover a secret that would shake the entire hospital to its core, and he would stop at nothing to bring his child home. David's heart pounded as he stormed through the hospital corridors. He had built this place from the ground up, trusted the people who worked here, yet now, someone had betrayed him in the worst way possible. His daughter was missing, and no one had a straight answer. Keisha, still weak from labor, clutched his hand. "David, please, find her," she whispered, tears slipping down her face. He nodded, his jaw tightening. He would, no matter what it took. Determined, David pulled aside the head nurse. "Where is my daughter?" he demanded. The woman hesitated, her eyes darting toward the closed doors of the maternity ward. "Mr. Carter, I don't know," she stammered. "Dr. Reynolds took her for routine checks, but what?" His voice was sharp now, filled with barely controlled fury. "She swallowed hard. She never brought the baby back." David felt a cold chill crawl up his spine. He had known Dr. Reynolds for years. She was brilliant, respected, but lately, something about her had seemed off. There were whispers among the staff, rumors of strange behavior, unexplained transfers of newborns to other facilities. He hadn't paid much attention before. Now he wished he had. His mind raced. Why would she take their baby? And where? He needed answers, and he needed them fast. David squared his shoulders. If Dr. Reynolds thought she could hide the truth from him, she was about to learn just how wrong she was. David moved with purpose, his mind racing through every possibility. He had spent years making this hospital a place of trust, a place where lives were saved, not stolen. And now, his own child was at the center of something dark. He reached Dr. Reynolds' office, but the door was locked. His gut told him she was hiding something. He turned to one of the security guards. "Open it," he ordered. The man hesitated. "Sir, I don't." "I own this hospital," David cut in. "Open the door, now." The lock clicked and the door swung open. The office was pristine, too perfect. But one thing stood out, a filing cabinet slightly ajar. David yanked it open and flipped through the folders. His eyes landed on something that made his breath hitch. A list of names, babies. Some had notes beside them, transferred. Others had nothing at all. And at the bottom of the list, one name stood out. Baby Carter. No notes, no details, just a question mark. Keisha's voice echoed in his mind. Asterisk find her asterisk. Just then, his phone buzzed. An unknown number. He answered, his grip tightening. "Stop looking, Mr. Carter," a woman's voice said, calm but firm. "It's bigger than you." His blood ran cold. "Who are you?" A pause. Then, "You should ask your wife." The line went dead. David stood frozen. What did Keisha have to do with this? And how deep did this go? David's hands clenched around his phone as the call ended. The words echoed in his head. Asterisk, ask your wife, asterisk, his mind raced. Keisha had been just as devastated as he was. What could she possibly know? Or worse, what had she kept from him? He rushed back to her hospital room. She was sitting up now, her eyes tired but alert. When she saw his face, she tensed. David, what is it? He hesitated for a second before stepping closer. I just got a call, he said carefully. Someone told me to stop looking. He studied her face. And they said I should ask you why. Keisha's breath hitched, and for a moment she didn't speak. Then finally she whispered, David, I was going to tell you. His stomach dropped. Tell me what? Tears filled her eyes. A few months ago, I got a call from a woman. She said she knew something about our baby. I thought it was a mistake, but she warned me. If I didn't listen, something bad would happen. David's pulse pounded in his ears. Why didn't you say anything? I was scared, she admitted. I didn't want to believe it. And then, when I gave birth and they took her away, I knew something was wrong. But I didn't know how deep it went. David exhaled sharply. If Keisha had been warned, then this had been planned long before today. Before he could speak, the door creaked open. Dr. Reynolds stood there, her expression unreadable. Mr. Carter, she said softly, it's time we talk. David's fists clenched as Dr. Reynolds stepped inside, closing the door behind her. The room felt smaller, the air thick with unspoken truths. Keisha sat frozen, her eyes darting between them. You have exactly 5 seconds to tell me where my daughter is, David said, his voice like steel. Dr. Reynolds didn't flinch. Instead, she sighed, almost as if she had been expecting this moment. Mr. Carter, she said evenly, you're looking in the wrong direction. David's jaw tightened. What does that mean? She hesitated, then turned to Keisha. You should tell him. Keisha's breath hitched. Tell him what? Dr. Reynolds crossed her arms. About the deal. David's stomach twisted. He looked at his wife, searching her face. Keisha, what deal? Tears welled in her eyes. David, I didn't know it would come to this. The room spun. He took a step back. Come to what? Keisha swallowed hard. When I found out I was pregnant, I started having complications. The doctor said there was a chance the baby wouldn't make it. She squeezed her hands together. Then, someone reached out to me. They said they could guarantee our baby's survival, but there was a price. David's pulse rolled in his ears. What kind of price? Keisha's voice broke. They said, after the birth, the baby wouldn't be ours anymore. A sharp pain shot through David's chest. You agreed to this. Tears streamed down her face. I thought they were lying. I thought they were trying to scare me. She sobbed. I didn't think they would actually take her. David turned back to Dr. Reynolds, his rage boiling over. Who are asterisk they asterisk? She shook her head. That's what I'm trying to figure out. But whoever they are, they have more power than you realize. A chill ran down David's spine. His daughter wasn't just missing. She was taken by something much bigger than a corrupt doctor. And now time was running out. David felt like the ground had been ripped out from under him. His wife had made a deal with people who never intended to keep their word. His child was gone, and the person standing in front of him, Dr. Reynolds, was somehow both involved and afraid. He took a slow, steady breath, forcing himself to think. Where is my daughter? He asked again, his voice calmer but no less dangerous. Dr. Reynolds hesitated. Then finally she said, there's a facility, off the books. Babies who disappear from hospitals usually end up there. Keisha gasped. Oh my God. David's stomach turned. Take me there. Dr. Reynolds shook her head. It's not that simple. These people are untouchable. You think owning this hospital gives you power. They own people like me, like you. David stepped forward, his voice low. I don't care who they are. We're getting my daughter back. Now. Dr. Reynolds held his gaze, then nodded. I have a way in. But once we do this, there's no turning back. David didn't hesitate. Let's go. An hour later, they pulled up to a secluded building, hidden behind high walls and security cameras. Dr. Reynolds used her access card to get them inside. David's heart pounded as they moved through the cold, sterile hallways. Then suddenly, a baby's cry echoed through the corridor. Keisha gasped. That's her. David sprinted toward the sound, bursting into a dimly lit room filled with cribs. And there, wrapped in a pink blanket, was his daughter. Relief flooded him as he scooped her into his arms. But before he could turn, a voice stopped him cold. Well, a man's voice drawled. You just couldn't leave it alone, could you, David? David turned slowly, and there, standing in the doorway, was someone he never expected. His business partner, his best friend, the man he had trusted for years. The true mastermind behind it all. David's grip on his daughter tightened as he locked eyes with the man he had trusted for years. You. His voice was barely above a whisper, disbelief laced in every syllable. His so-called friend sighed, stepping further into the room. It was never personal, David, just business. David's blood boiled. You stole my child. Me, child. The man shook his head. I saved her. Do you have any idea how many people would pay anything for a child? The right people. People with power. His tone was almost casual, as if he wasn't talking about something unthinkable. David clenched his jaw. You're going to regret this. Before the man could respond, footsteps echoed from behind. Security. But not hospital security, his security. The men David had secretly called the moment they entered the facility. His friend's confident smirk faltered. You have no idea what you're doing. David stepped forward, his daughter still in his arms. I know exactly what I'm doing. Within minutes, authorities arrived. The facility was shut down, its secrets exposed. Dr. Reynolds provided evidence, securing the arrests of everyone involved, including the man David once called a friend. Back at the hospital, Keisha wept as she held their baby girl for the first time. She's safe, she whispered. David wrapped his arms around them both. She's home. As he looked down at his daughter's peaceful face, he knew one thing for certain: no one would ever take her away again.